welcome everybody out to the Planning and Zoning Commission tonight. We'll get started here. Well, I've asked Commissioner Mendenhall to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our first item tonight is approval of last month's minutes. Has anybody had a chance to review those?
I have. And I move that we accept the minutes from last month.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Minutes are approved. Our second agenda item is a conditional use permit. Is somebody from staff, are they going to present on this?
I'd be happy to. Click on the picture. Let's try it again. There it goes. Okay, so this first request we're looking at is an existing tower that's to the west of the All Abilities Park. Next slide, please.
Wait for it. Here we go. Coming. What did you touch? How did you make that happen?
Brandon, why'd you put Dave in charge of that?
What was that? There we go.
One more. So this is a more recent picture. You can see we've got the SFCN building. What the applicant's looking to do is modify some of the array, the antenna array, but then expand the lease space on the ground so they'd have a bigger compound area for equipment on the ground level. So if we go to the next slide. This is a picture showing existing conditions. Next slide. So on the right, you can see the blue area where additional equipment would be added between the existing tower and the new SFCN hut. Sorry.
Another way to advance, I just found. Sorry.
Oh, awesome. And so staff recommended approval with the findings and conditions that are listed in the staff report.
Do any of the commissioners have any questions for staff?
It was only a year or two ago that we approved an upgrade at this site. And so is this with the same company or a different company?
This is with Verizon. I don't recall off the top of my head who
I don't either.
last looked at the area.
But we didn't have any problems or issues with that project, did we?
I don't recall that we
Pretty
did.
straightforward?
Yeah.
Okay.
We just request that they coordinate the landscaping and access with the city, and they're more than willing to do that.
The presentation material states it's a public hearing, but can you confirm that it's not a public hearing? Or the agenda? It is a public hearing.
It is a public hearing, yes.
We'll open this up to public hearing. If anybody has any comments, please come forward. Seeing none, we'll close public hearing. We've had a chance to ask questions. If everybody's satisfied, I'll hear a motion. Remember, this is an approval, not a recommendation.
I move that we approve the conditional use permit for the 1150 East Verizon upgrade 2022 cell tower modification, conditional use permit request based on, including findings and conditions. But you have 2022
Should
on
that be
here?
2023?
That's when they made the application, so that's
Yeah.
why
Okay.
it became
Okay.
that. Leave it that way.
It's the name of their file.
Yeah.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Next topic is the Canyon Road Verizon cell tower replacement.
So this is an existing location as well, further down Canyon Road. Next slide, please. So it's within the city's compound that has multiple departments. Most notably is the power substation that you see there to the left of the screen. Next slide. This is a view looking west of the existing tower. What the applicant's looking to do is actually replace the tower. It'd be the same height. So the top of the monopole and the top of the top set of antenna array would be 80 feet, similar to what is there now. Let's go to the next slide, please. And then these are pictures. The one on the left is looking north, and the one on the right is looking from the neighborhood to the north, looking south. And so you can kind of see, as comparison, the height of some of the power lines and whatnot associated with the existing uses that are there. Next slide, please. So this kind of shows it would only move roughly 10 feet over from where it is. It needs to stay in the existing lease area that they have with the city. Next slide, please. And this is their proposed array at maximum usage. This was actually identical to what they presented to the city in 2018 for some modifications to the tower. And so in the staff report, DRC did recommend that it be approved with some conditions. One was that notification be made to the power department before any work commences, and two, that work hours be limited between 8 and 6. That was a condition the Planning Commission passed in 2018 as far as sensitivity to the neighbors to the north. And then there was also a third condition that all the lease agreement details be finalized.
Thank you, Brandon. We'll open this up to public hearing now. Is anybody here to speak on this or may have comments on this item? Seeing none, I'll close public hearing. Do any of the commissioners have questions for staff? If not, then I'd be happy to hear a proposal.
I move the Planning Commission approves the conditional use permit for Canyon Road Verizon Cell Tower, subject to compliance with staff's findings and conditions.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. We'll turn that back over to staff.
Thank you. This next one is an annexation request. It previously was titled GWC 320. It's since grown in size and has been renamed Stockman Flats. Previously, a month or two ago, the Planning Commission and City Council did look at a request to include this area in the annexation policy boundary. That was approved by the City Council. Prior to that, it was a location that Springville City was looking at potentially annexing. To keep the history short, there were some concerns on behalf of Springville as far as being able to provide utilities and improvements to this area in a timely manner, I'll say. Whereas Spanish Fork has some utility work that's being done by the applicant just to the south. And so, as you can see in the staff report findings, one of the findings was that Springville City did not oppose our potential annexation of the property. Current details of the request, it's approximately 535 acres. On the west side of the property, there is an existing home and some agricultural buildings. The majority of the property is in agricultural use. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. There are some challenges being close to the lake. Next slide, please. This is just showing the floodplain. The applicant's aware of it and would need to work with any floodplain requirements that the city has, as well as FEMA. Let's go ahead to the next slide, please. This is a brief presentation. We'll hold off on this one for just a second. We'll let the applicant present this part if he'd like to. The main things for your consideration, and this is open to your discretion as far as making a motion recommendation to the City Council. The DRC did look at it. And if we go back a slide, so this is the overall area. Roughly about 2/3 of the east, the original 320 acres, the DRC felt comfortable making that zoning designation industrial 1, I-1, upon annexation, and then there was some questions about what to do with the remainder, whether that should be I-1 as well or RR. Ultimately, the DRC made the recommendation to you to consider it RR. I believe the property owner is here tonight and has indicated a request to make that I-1 as well. That's something that can be discussed and talked through. There were just two conditions with the recommendation. One, that there is the need for public safety EMS services to be provided here. So there is some ongoing discussion as far as how that's accomplished, whether that's, for instance, the fire station at the airport or whatnot, but we don't necessarily need to dive into those details. That's a study that the city is working on. And then the second condition is that the applicant continues to cooperate with the city as far as area transportation planning, whether that's roads or trails. There are some plans for a shoreline trail, and then the DRC did discuss potentially some needs for some east-west public roads in addition to some north-south ones that the applicants are already proposing. But those are details that the DRC felt could be finalized before site plan approval, not necessarily an issue that needs to be resolved at this time with the annexation. And so just recapping, we've got 535 acres. It is within our annexation policy boundary. To the south, it's general planned industrial. And so for those reasons, as stated in the staff report, the recommendation to the council is approval. At this point, we can turn the time over to Jared if you'd like to highlight some of the details in the presentation that we've got loaded up. And then if you have any questions for the applicant or staff or the property owners that are here present tonight, we'd be more than happy to address any questions.
Great.
Thank you. Can I get a pointer?
Will you state your name just for the record?
Sure. Yeah, my name's Jared Morgan. I'm with GWC Capital. Does this have a pointer on it?
Apologize, Mr. Morgan. I don't think we have pointers.
That's
We have no pointers today.
That's fine.
My best.
I guess
They were so complicated last month, they took them away from us.
Yeah, we could use the cursor as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, thank you, staff and commissioners. We're excited to be here tonight. GWC Capital represents 320 of the 535 acres. We're under contract to purchase that acreage. The final contingency on purchase is annexation. And so Mr. Hales and his wife are here. They're the adjacent property owners, and they own about 214 acres to the west of our 320. So between the two of us, we make up the full property owners or potential property owners of the site. So wanted to just describe briefly to you the thought process here for the site, and as we pursue light industrial with your city, want to just go through what our intentions are and why we think this is good fit from an infrastructure standpoint. We did go through a fairly grueling 9-month process with Springville City to allow for the feasibility study to show that it was much better for us to be in this municipality of Spanish Fork, for reasons that Brandon mentioned earlier. So we don't need to review the executive summary slide. That's the next slide. If we can go to this slide here. So the blue boundary represents more or less, it's not exactly, but more or less the overall planned industrial area. What we'd like to show you tonight is in the white. So it's a conceptual site plan that we're exploring. We've brought our civil engineer this evening here as well if you have questions regarding any civil engineering questions. But light industrial will be kind of the proposed use here. Concrete tilt-up buildings. We've been through a fairly extensive geotechnical exercise with 2 different groups, CMT and GSH. GSH is the group that we've kind of aligned ourselves with, and we're very aware of floodplain. This actually happens to be a fantastic year to see where groundwater levels are, and what the soils conditions are on the site, because this property is contiguous with, you know, our beloved tributary Utah Lake, and so we understand the complexities of the soils. Roughly 100 acres of this 320 acres will be delineated as a wetland, and you know, I guess depending on what was it was actually brought up earlier today in the DRC meeting. Mr. Thompson brought up the Supreme Court ruling. I believe, was it in Idaho? It was over wetlands in Idaho. We're unsure of what that ruling will do to our site in particular, but for now, as you'll see in the site plan, we're reserving wetland areas, utilizing them as regional storm drain areas. So I'll get a little bit further into that, but we feel like we've done our due diligence and homework on water. We're branding this Stockman Flats. We're proud of the heritage of the area. We thought we would pay homage to the agricultural nature of, you know, the historical nature of the area. Thought it was really cool how we have the SF as the mark, and makes for a great belt buckle and hat, and we're excited to brand it Stockman Flats, and feel like the tenant recruitment is going to fit really well within your municipality, and I can speak a little bit more to that here shortly. So, next slide. So, on the right side of this site plan is the northern portion of the property. So Utah Lake is there where the cursor is. The western side, or the left side of the map, is at State Road 77, right there. So we've been able to lay out plus or minus 4 million square feet of light industrial here. The red dotted areas in between buildings 4, 5, 6, 7 and buildings 1, 2, 3, that is a wetland that we are retaining on the property, and that is the alignment that's accommodating your 1,000 acres to the south of here. The regional storm drain plan that Hanson Allen Lewis put together for us last year and for the city of Spanish Fork showed that this property was important for a discharge area for the 1,000 acres for regional storm drain. So that is, this property is accommodating that, and we're discharging into the wetlands there on the north. We also have aligned on the north side of our view today, but the west side of the property, the 1730 West Public Street, that connects to your major north-south corridor that will eventually cut down through south and connect to your new interchange. And so we see this as the northern portion of that northwest corridor. To the east of the 1150 West Public Street on the south side of this map sits Springville City's potential, annexation boundary is where this is going to stop, and so Mr. Money's property, he'll determine in the future what he wants to do there. But when Brandon talks about major east-west corridors, right there, that it's labeled private road 4300 north, I believe. Those are the conversations that we're willing to have as we go to site plan and platting exercises with the city, to just talk about how you want to orient transit and how to best accommodate for the future there. Next slide, please. This is the proposed phasing map. We do want to start with the southwest corner. Anything in red, actually, you'll see is within the first phase. So the wetlands for the storm drain discharge area. We do have a lift station there, and it's in phase 3, but within the northern wetlands. That lift station would be a part of phase one, to accommodate all these phases. But we see phase one is 2023-24, and then respectively, the phases will happen each subsequent year after that. So we see this as a 7 to 10 year project for us. And it will be coupled with land sales to various users, and then we intend to go vertical with our tilted buildings as well. Our first land sale that we're exploring is with WW Clyde. So on the southwest corner, that 25 acres right there, WW Clyde intends to transfer a number of Springville and Provo yards and assets to this area. That would be what we would bring to the market first. Similar to how Sunrock let out in our industrial park to the south of here, we'd have another Clyde entity that would have a nice presence here to kind of kick off the momentum for the project. So, yeah, we're excited about the project. With how this parcel is so integrated with all the existing utilities, it's just a natural fit for the next phase of our industrial park. So, yeah, happy to take any questions. Any questions for the Hales family as well? They're here, or our civil engineer. So,
Has there been a traffic study? I mean, what are we expecting traffic to be coming into and out of this site? Do we know, and is there any improvements planned for the state road that's there now?
yeah, great question. So traffic study has been done. Traffic study was done for the industrial park to the south, and it's being amended to capture all of these users and what the potential flows would need to be. We are the group that's expanding State Road 77 currently. And so UDOT has reviewed and approved the expansion plan. So we do have, enhancements to the road. There would be further enhancements to the north side of the road as this gets annexed and improved. But all of which has been reviewed and approved by UDOT.
And have we seen that, as staff or the DRC or?
You've seen the current plan. I guess I'll let you speak better to it.
Condition 2
Honestly,
also gives me some comfort.
Concerns about trip generation from this area, they've kind of taken a back seat as one of the things I think that we believe about this type of development happening here is that it's ideally situated to where it funnels immediately to one state route that's in proximity to one of the bigger transportation corridors in the western United States, right, I-15. As Mr. Morgan described, as properties develop along the corridor, they're widening the state route, they're making other improvements to that, acceleration lanes, deceleration lanes, probably some signals in this area as well, which will be a change.
Roundabouts?
We're saving that for a little bit later.
Okay.
Maybe. Not aware of any plans for roundabouts on the state route there. Mr. Thompson can jump in. But I guess, again, I would respond to questions about traffic as really being one of the main reasons that we support having this kind of development along this corridor and even further to the west, heading out in this direction, because we're not routing traffic through local streets in really any way along this corridor. I think we're putting this type of traffic where it can best be accommodated, and that's a real plus for us. Now, UDOT, as they look at what they require by way of improvements along their corridor, they require that type of information, and that's, where Chris's department gets involved as well. Chris, I don't know if you want to add much to that, but.
No, this is a great location for traffic itself. I think that any traffic study will likely be more between UDOT on deceleration and acceleration lanes and signals widening type things, but as far as traffic flow goes, this is in a great spot.
Dave, is it accurate that staff's condition number 2 encompasses further study or traffic impact studies as necessary, a master transportation plan? Because if that's the case, I'm comfortable, that's a good condition.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yes, and maybe just to add a little bit to that. We discussed earlier that up until recently, this property was not in our annexation policy plan. And as such, it currently really has not been considered as part of our transportation master plan. So one thing that we think we probably still need to dedicate some time to study is, and Mr. Morgan touched on this as well, the potential need, for example, to have, where right now it's indicated on their conceptual site plan, a private street, whether or not that might need to be expanded slightly to be a public street. We also talked, it was actually after the DRC meeting today, about the potential need for us to accommodate what's been planned along other shoreline of the Utah Lake, which is a trail that's planned to circumnavigate the lake all the way around. So a little bit of space for them, what's on the north end of their property, and a handful of things like that. I would say also further study of the state route to see maybe what should happen. Although that's been planned in as much as everything on the south side for us. I mean, we've already contemplated the need for improvements there. That's what Mr. Morgan described. He's been even constructing in coordination with city plans and UDOT. There's not a lot, I think, to review there, but we did want to make sure that that was at least discussed. And I'll say as well, partly because we know that Springville has plans in the area, for example, and I'm just going to be approximate when I refer to their plan here again. This is approximately Center Street for Springville, right there. And in as much as they plan to bring a road west from Springville that might tie into a neighboring property to the east of the eastern boundary of these properties, coordinating that. We'd like to take some more time with that between now and when they're ready to start to construct things here on this site.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, we feel like a lot of these details will manifest themselves during the site plan and preliminary plat process, and we're more than willing to and excited to take a deeper dive into those. So.
Right on. I have a question for Mr. and Mrs. Hales. Now the time. Mr. Hales or Mrs. Hales? I have a question for you.
Okay.
Some
We
people
need
here.
Mrs. Sales too.
Mrs. Hales, Mr.
Don't
Hales.
be me.
You're speaking for both of you?
Halfway.
There's been some comments made tonight, Mr. Hales, that you're in favor of an I-1 zoning designation for your property. Is that accurate?
Yes,
Okay.
that's industrial, right,
Yeah.
I-1?
I just wanted to hear it from you
Well,
rather than just
I'll
assume.
tell you why I'm doing that more than anything, is we've had some property in Springville that was in industrial property more than 25 years ago. Anyway, someone without even my knowledge, now, I've never talked to anybody about this property, and I put it in industrial, and the next thing you know, I had some people talk to me. I said, well, go talk to the city and, see what you can do. Next thing I know, they said, well, it's not industrial anymore. The sewer's been there, it's sort of right north of the transfer station. We're all aware where that is. And it's been a nightmare working with Springville. And I've not even tried to work with them. I've had several meetings, and they're very difficult, is the word I want to use. And that's the biggest reason I'm here, is I was approached, my son called me up and says, hey, what do you think about doing something? I'd been in contact with Jared Morgan and also Brent Money. We had several different meetings, and I just thought, well, I had the chance not to be involved with Springville, I just as well get it annexed. That's my only feelings right there. And I think industrial's where it'll end up, so I just as well be there. I'm gonna continue to, I used to be in the dairy business till about 15 years ago. And I just sort of changed, my kids grew up, and I guess the one was going in on a mission and the other one became a school teacher. The one that likes to farm a little bit became a school teacher, and the other one's into finance, works for Nebo School District. And so I started being a hay farmer type person rather than a dairyman. And so I will continue to do what I'm doing. I have no intentions of selling very soon. But who knows what'll happen. That inland port and a few things that I've heard a little bit about, who knows what'll happen. But I have no ideas of what I want to do very fast.
Other than you want it zoned industrial?
I'd like to be industrial. I'd just like to have a little separation between me and anything else. After the Springville episode, they've actually got that property in Springville into a mixed-use deal. Sort of that, you know, when someone says, well, you can put apartments in there until it becomes like a beauty salon or a convenience store. I don't know what a convenience store, but, and people try to buy it and they already own 150 acres around me, and I'm saying, well, get that developed and then come and talk to me. So that's where that sits. And so and I'm really not in any, my wife, I don't, what her opinion is.
Does she also want it zoned industrial? And is she also an owner of the property? It's a,
She's as
okay.
much owner as I am.
I
She
see
says
a
she owns
nod,
51%.
an affirmation there,
So
okay.
she got the deciding vote. But we're not in any hurry to do anything.
Gotcha.
But my whole thing here is Springville's difficult enough that once Clydes were able to get away from Springville, I thought I just will join them if I had the opportunity.
So why we
Appreciate
have,
that.
why we have you up here, why, can we ask staff, the DRC's recommendation was for it to be zoned RR.
I think the main comment that was made this morning was just the level of detail that we have with the GWC property, whereas we're just starting to break the ice as far as utilities and things that can service the Hale property.
Which is true, I think absolutely he's right, and I would add, the assumption that we had that the Hales wanted it annexed with rural residential zoning. So we.
At the time, that was the assumption.
Yeah, this morning,
Okay.
Gal in our office talked with them and learned that
I wonder
they
if
prefer the
probably
industrial, so.
Tell us they wanted
That
it.
might have changed our conversation this morning.
Just better for the city.
It's not a big deal to me, one way or the other. My feeling is, I don't think it's ever gonna be rural residential. Is that what RR is?
Yes.
So what's rural residential? Explain that.
It's
to me.
basically what you have in your
universal.
What it is
county
now.
today, really.
Farming.
Is what?
5 1/4 acre lots.
5 1/4 acre lots.
Yeah.
I don't think that'll ever go that direction. That's just my thinking.
I would support that, certainly,
Okay.
and agree with.
That's my only
Mr.
comment.
Hales, yeah.
And my comment this morning, I talked to my son a little bit about it, works for you guys, Jordan. And he says, I think you're better off in industrial, Dad.
I agree with the airport there. We wouldn't want someone to build a house right there it's
Yeah.
directly over the airplane pattern.
Phase one here adjoins me, and it looks like they're gonna go in there. I think is there gonna be a road right there on that west edge too?
Possibly.
So,
Well, and it matches the general plan.
yes,
For
it
that
matches the
area.
general plan. That's
It's
exactly
what's
right. And that's all I'm trying to
adjacent.
do
It
is
all is-
constructive here.
Yeah.
The direction will probably end up going and just as well be there, in my opinion, now as down the road.
Yep.
Generally, we put it in rural residential as a holding zone till we see more details of what the development's gonna be, but it just seems like this particular one seems like a no-brainer to me to put it in I-1 to
Okay.
industrial.
That's my feeling too.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave and Brandon, even if it's an industrial one and you have an application that is a permitted use, it's accurate that the city won't approve it unless there's adequate utility infrastructure in place? Okay, sounds good.
Do any of the commissioners have any other questions for the applicant or staff, or?
I have one quick question. A few months ago, we met with MAG with Mountain Land Association of Governments about transportation. And one of the things they talked about was the possibility of having a road that would come across that arm of the lake that is just north of here to come down into this area to relieve the pressure on I-15. And then along with that, they talked about taking this road, the state highway now, and taking it west and then even going further west to get to the Payson area, the Payson-Santaquin area. Are we looking forward to that, or would that in any way affect this property? Do we have, I don't know that we had anything that was concrete along those lines, but there's a lot of area here that could still be utilized for that, if it ever comes, I guess.
It's a great question. We actually looked at a combination of Springville, Spanish Fork, and MAG, master plan transportation facilities. The one you're referring to is actually further west, and so
Yes.
it's not within this annexation request, but further to the west.
If I remember right, it kind of aligned with the old Geneva Road. As it comes south, it would come through that way. But I don't know that that was exactly the alignment that they would have. But that's what it would be, is quite a bit further west if it aligns that way. So it shouldn't, and that was what I was getting at, is that it shouldn't affect this property, including the Hales property. It should not affect it.
Right.
Okay.
Things do change, but with what we're looking at today, no.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, if there's no further question, I'd entertain a motion.
I move that we recommend the annexation, the Stockman Flats annexation be approved with the entire annexation area being zoned I-1, subject to the findings and conditions.
Second.
A motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. It will go to the city council, the 20th?
So the 20th, the city council meeting?
And that one would be, am I correct in saying that one would be a public hearing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and so it will be a public hearing for all of the people who would be affected in that area, including you as the Haleses and anyone else that may be interested.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to the next, is the next one our transportation master plan?
Yes.
Yes.
I do want to point out that we have a commissioner that needs to leave in about 12 minutes, 5 to 12
What?
minutes.
5 to 12 minutes.
So if we
I
could-
see 12 on my,
don't-
We'll talk about this quickly.
You don't need to.
Great.
Take your time.
Can I have that mouse, Dave?
We want you to be thorough with the city's business, you know? Not on my, you don't need to go, brevity on my account is not needed.
but appreciated.
So the first change that's being proposed is just right there in front of the big Walmart. Our master plan called for 7 lanes there. When you model that out, it actually didn't help traffic in that area. Of course, at intersections, you'll have actually 8 lanes or so, depending on how many left turns and right turns you have, but having 2 through in each direction and then the middle lanes, a 5-lane arterial is all that's needed there. So, and that's what you have right now. And so the brain damage of widening it 2 more lanes and taking out banks and stuff, it's just doesn't make sense. So that's the first change.
did you say taking out banks?
Well, yeah, there's a couple banks that just got built. I just can't imagine it.
Right.
So, The next change, maybe it'd be better to scroll through the pictures rather than here, just with this.
Oh, yeah, this next one, I was really interested in this one.
Can you just zoom out just a little bit? All right, there we go. Okay, so that's this one. The next one is 3400 East.
Hey, Dave.
Right now,
I guess the door's locked?
What?
Oh, is somebody locked out?
so quickly before anyone comes. We are closing this crossing over the railroad that connects over here to Mapleton. And, in fact, it is closed. And so as part of that, we are adding a minor type collector road that would need to connect up from here to go across to where Mapleton is.
Is that on city property right now, where that new road's gonna go?
No, it would, as development occurs, it get built. The next change is just a series of trails changes. Right now, this is our trails plan. If you look, we took out the trail connection here simply because it would not fit over by where Target's going in. The same type of situation here. And so in the end, the trails plan would go along here and connect in this wise. There's still great connectivity. This is an existing trail. Just removed a few trails where you just simply can't fit them in anyway. Any questions about that? I don't want to move quicker than you're comfortable, but,
We're comfortable.
okay, good. Right now, this is the trails plan by that park over on the northeast bench. What we are proposing is that it connect through and out to 400 North through undeveloped area, so.
Is that the park by Sierra Bonita? Where's
Legacy
that?
Farms.
It's, so if you come down Smashwork Parkway, you have this park here, and then you have kind of a wetlands park
Oh,
tucked away back in here. What we wanted is for the trail to leave there and come all the way back down to Fourth, where we already have a trail on the south side of Fourth North. Some trail changes here as well. This is already developed without a trail. There's a big irrigation ditch that would complicate having a trail in here, and where we have a nice connection now here on a less traveled area, we basically took the trail out of here and kept it up there. And so we don't have to, putting trails in where it's already developed is quite expensive, and we don't think is needed with this connection here. Any questions about that?
is that where there's a roundabout?
Yeah, there's a
there?
roundabout.
Connects over
he-
to the small mart right there?
Yeah, so there's two roundabouts, one here and one there,
Right,
and so you
okay.
come around and then,
Yeah, that is a way better way.
yeah, I think so.
So, Chris, when you say that putting the trails in after the development's happened, was this a plan for trail before the development went in, or did this come about just after they were?
Yeah, this was after, it was just drawn all together. I think it actually was contemplated before this was, but just never taken out when this one came in, so.
Can I ask what your blue dashed line means?
Oh, right here, that's a
4,300.
bike lane in the road,
Oh, gotcha.
so.
Okay.
And so you'll notice the bike lane stays here in Canyon Road, but off-road trails stay here. Next change, this is on 2300 East. We we plan for 2300 East to be a much bigger road than can even fit there. And so we wanted to show both an off-road trail and an on-road trail here, especially if the regional transportation group plans to improve this road. We want to make sure that we have both on the docket so that either one or both could be built with that plan. I don't know that this will really affect anything in the near future, but we think it's wise to have both on there.
Where on 2300 is this, where you have it jogging across?
So
What's your reference?
it would be right at that first intersection. I think there's a church right here.
So Canyon Road is,
Canyon Road's clear up here.
oh,
That's Canyon Road. This is right down
oh,
where
yeah.
it drops off the
Okay,
hill.
I see now,
So would be a new road
yeah.
coming up out of the river bottoms, and then, so this is very future type project, long time from now.
The existing road, though, you have marked on there, but the new
Yeah,
road is what
yep.
will happen.
Yep, this is the existing road.
Okay. I ride that road and get stung by bees regularly.
Dude, a lot of beekeepers there.
Why do I keep riding it? I don't know.
You must not be too allergic to them. All right, any questions about that anymore? The next one is where the high school, where the junior high, the cemetery is right here, coming off the road. Eventually, and this is very long-term plan, 3rd East is supposed to come off the hill, and then it connects all the way down to Salem. And so we thought it'd be well to have the trail follow that same plan. Let's see.
That one was hard for me to orient, so that's something that's coming in the future, not something I can picture right now.
Right, right. That's in Mountain Lands Association, a government's long-term plan. 100 South between Main Street and 320 West. So we've had a trails plan here for a while, and then we built the library and realized we can't fit it in there. And so we're just taking it out. But with the knowledge that this trail that we just looked at comes across, the school district built a section here. We have this built over here. And so this provides a good east-west connection to the overall trails plan that makes it so we feel like we can do without this 100 South trail. Any questions on that one? Okay. And then we had some road alignment changes here on the west side. Well, not really road alignment changes, but we wanted to put the trail on the correct side of the road. If you look, let's see if I can find it. Right now you have this trail being proposed. See if I can. So this trail right here moves over to here, if you look.
This is down
So
in the industrial area where the pallet back is being
Is
moved.
going to.
yeah, so you have Wasatch Palace
Right there.
over here, and then you have the railroad crossing,
Yeah.
we have to actually move this road to at least 250 feet away from the railroad crossing. And so instead of having the trail come here, we'd have it follow that road.
Okay.
So if you can see that. Okay, high school, this trail is coming out with their new construction, so it takes that out. It's pretty easy. No longer goes to a nice pool, so the need isn't there. And then 1900 North Trail, just keeping it on the south side of the road, which coincides with some of the development going on in that area. The other thing is taken, it looks like that, no, that stays on. 750 South Trail location, so before it was coming in here on the south side of the road and staying on the south side of the road, connecting in where this church has it on the south side of the road. With how the trail developed, with this land developing first, the trail ended up on the east side of the road, and this isn't a road, so it wraps around without crossing a road on that side. So what we're proposing is to move it from the south side to the north side, right through here, until it gets to the roundabout that's here. Then it can come without crossing a road again, come all the way up to US 6 and this interchange, but then it'll cross at the roundabout back to the south side and stay here. So that basically became needed when this development came and built the trail from here to here on this side instead of that side. Okay, this is the transit plan that we had made and felt like it was a great idea and we liked it. But then after further discussion, we realized the real transit plan is owned by UTA and our plan probably should just match theirs. And if we want to change it, we need to go through them and then reflect it on ours. So this is just bringing our plan in line with UTA's plan. Any questions about that? And that's it. These are all of the changes that we've contemplated over the last 6 months. And then we bring them to you all at once at this time, and then City Council, and then get them approved effective July 1st. So our intent is to make master plan and standards changes only happen on July 1st and January 1st. And that helps us track what applies to what development and just gives developers, you know, a single point in time to worry about instead of having constant changes.
So are talks with UTA ongoing? Are they slowed a bit, or are they plugging along?
It is UTA.
Yeah, one thing that we have worked out with them, and you can see that here, is right now the buses go down Center Street to 8th East and they go up 8th East. We feel like that's not a great route. There's not very many destination points along that route. And so we've worked with them to move it, as you can see on that blue line, to Main Street and then down 10th. We feel like there's a lot more opportunity to find destinations along that route rather than 8th East. So we worked with them to make that change, and we'll continue to work with them. Our biggest thing we're looking forward to in the future is a commuter rail station.
Right.
And we think that will change a lot of things in Spanish Fork.
Any conversation about having a bus route come up Canyon Road? I know there's been quite a few people that have said, if it'll just come up Canyon Road, I would hop on the bus up to Provo.
Yeah, we broached that with UTA, and they said that they can't make their models work with that right now. they'll continue to look at in the future, but they're a little bit kind of wary of that based on similar circumstances elsewhere where it didn't work. That being said, they're looking at some last mile things, and maybe Dave, you can explain the green line a little bit better than I can.
Is-
Yeah, sorry.
Is that just based on rooftops? What's that based on that they can't make the model work?
Go ahead.
Yeah, they have models that account for all different types of inputs. I think, yeah, housing density is a big one. Other things, just traffic counts along corridors, potential ridership is what it's all about for them. I think, and if I'm picking out the colors correctly, green line, we're talking about Canyon Road, 2550 East, is that right?
Yeah.
I think honestly, that's kind of a pipe dream, with the kind of development that's happened out there being predominantly 2 homes per acre. It really is all that it ends up being. It's really tough. I mean, the rule of thumb that I heard in college that may have changed a little bit is you need about 8 homes per acre or a lot of employment to really make transit like we've known it in the past work. That being said, I think there's some merit still in looking at it from this perspective, as maybe a best case for Spanish Fork. Chris pointed out some things with the previous document that we looked at. Plans to have 2300 East, ultimately maybe to be some kind of multi-city connector of some type. I will be long gone. We're talking decades into the future before that comes about. But if that ever does, then maybe that has the kind of ridership potential that would allow for transit to work out here. In the short term, I think this is interesting, and I still don't have my head around exactly how it can work from a cost perspective, but UTA is studying what they call micro-transit, which essentially is kind of a publicly funded Uber to help with what Chris touched on, which is kind of conceivably maybe like last mile, like we have a backbone route going through Spanish Fork, as is represented with the blue line there. And maybe there are opportunities for riders to get from that backbone route to other places in the community with a very different kind of transit vehicle than what we're used to. They're doing that in some other places in the county today and other places along the Wasatch Front, and offering those services, as I understand it, for the same fare as basically the cost of a bus ticket. So those things I'm sure will continue to get explored, and the more that I hear from the UTA folks, really for them, they're trying to use the resources that they have to get as much ridership as they can. And I think that makes all the sense in the world. But we're building some transit challenges into our land use patterns. Certainly some things we've talked about, for example, the condominiums near the neighborhood Walmart and other things like that. That kind of concentrated development intensity lends itself much better, as you would expect, to making transit work. But we're pretty low density through a good part of the Spanish Fork.
How do they figure in like industrial parks, like we just talked tonight about what could potentially be 300 to 500 acres of an industrial park with a lot of jobs in it?
We've talked a lot with them about that. You're talking about many millions of square feet potentially of industrial development. And just running bus routes through those areas has not proved in other parts of the state to really work for ridership. So what UTA wants to do instead of developing scheduled bus routes through those areas is to work with employers to do like van pools and other things like that to target when their employees need to get there and leave and that sort of a thing. It's really driven by their shift schedules and those types of things. You know, so your traditional bus every 30 minutes or an hour kind of a schedule is horribly ineffective. But they have some really unique programs that I think if we see the kind of development that we expect in that area, We'll see some of those vehicles out there. Oftentimes, as I understand it, employers pay for some part of that. Employees pay for some part of that. UTA picks up the tab. Occasionally, even they're like employee-driven. UTA provides the vehicle and its operation and different things like that are handled, between the employer and employees. Some interesting things that UTA does, and again, incidentally, I've really come to appreciate their, it's incredibly, I think, pragmatic approach to just trying to figure out what's gonna work the best to get people to and from where they need to be, and that sort of a thing.
I think that sometimes we have to think about a public-private partnership. I'm aware of a couple of individuals when Geneva was running that they bought an old station wagon, 8-passenger station wagon. And there's a group of workers at Geneva that would take that car and they would drive it to Geneva and leave it, and the shift that was coming off would drive it home, and it went back and forth. And they really didn't expect to make any money. They just wanted a cheap way to get to Geneva and back, but it began to make some pretty good money. And
How did they make money? I've got to ask.
they made money, and they actually bought turkeys at Christmas time for all the riders and all this other stuff. That was the mistake that they made, is that when they started doing that, word got back to UTA. Well, I don't know that it was UTA at the time, but to the state, and the state shut them down because that was a
Really?
public transportation.
Wow.
And they weren't licensed for that, and they couldn't get licensed. There was no way to get a license for it. They couldn't comply in any way, shape, or form. They were just shut down. Because there was, at that time, there was a local bus lines that went from Payson to Geneva. And so, anyway, so those things, we'll have to see how that works out at the time that those things happen. You can see where it could be advantageous to people, but it would make a lot of sense that would be something that the employer may be able to offer as an incentive to work there. There's a lot of government buildings in Salt Lake that offer free UTA passes to people that want to ride from Provo to Salt Lake, on the front, on Front Runner and stuff.
Yep.
And to take their buses. So at some point in time that may happen.
Very common. Yeah, that's.
Good.
Any other questions for Chris or for staff? Chris, thank you for a good presentation. Do we have,
If we could open a public hearing.
Also
public hearing, sorry.
This is public hearing.
We'll open public hearing. Oh, we have somebody, great. Please state your name.
My name is Jackie Larson. My question is on the last one, don't get ahead of yourself, go back. With the tracks in the bus station there, in the park and ride, would you guys usually talk to the property owners first before you put a picture of a bus on their property or right next to it? Or is this plan just not considering them and only what UTA would want?
That's UTA
This
putting
is-
a
this
bus
is
on
just the
that property.
future.
But it says Spanish Fort Pride and Progress on it.
That was put there, what would you say, 15 years ago, Dave? The UTA did a big study. I think there was a public process involved with it. It was a long time ago, but usually they do have that. And that's where they cited the best place for a commuter rail station. So it has to be along that red track somewhere in Spanish Fork. So.
Okay. I mean, I would think that in 15 years, give or take, they would have talked to them because the Hills own right next to it. I think that's right on the Markham's property. And the P is right next to their other piece. So they didn't know anything about it until I just mentioned it to them. That's me.
Yeah, so there's a study going on soon that will look at that again, and I'm sure they'll get talked to.
Any other comments?
It looks great.
Okay. Seeing none, we'll close public hearing. Any other questions based on Jackie's comments or anything with staff? Okay,
It does seem like a good idea if you're adding a bus stop or something to,
a commuter rail stop.
or commuter rails,
Did they know about it?
to talk with the neighbors and bring them in, but I can't imagine Spanish Fork wouldn't do a process of some kind.
As well
Yeah,
as
so
UTA.
Chris referenced a study in 2012. There was a study done. There was certainly public outreach then. I was a part of that. There wasn't a lot of participation on the part of property owners then, which is not uncommon. But as anything moves forward, certainly people are engaged, they're involved, and I think it'd be very misleading to suggest otherwise. So that certainly is a part of every process that we're engaged in.
Great.
I think we notice every bit for a development or a road change. I think the commuter rail station is going in. I have confidence that the city's
There'll be a lot.
noticing that.
Right, there'll be a lot of public outreach. Okay. Is this
Do
a?
we need to have a
is this-
proposal on this?
Is this a recommendation, or this is,
It goes to the council.
right?
Yes.
I've already done two. Somebody else want to do this one?
I can give it a try. I'd like to make the motion that we approve the transit master plan.
Recommend for approval.
Recommend for approval, the transit master plan revisions 23.01 and 23.02.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We'll go before the city council, I assume, on their next meeting. Next is the construction standards, changes to the construction standards.
They weren't interested in this stuff? This is
No
so
one.
interesting.
No one is interested in this.
This is my everyday. I find it very interesting, except for after work.
This means a lot to you.
All right, this is something that kind of goes along with ADUs. If someone wants to add an extra meter, let's say they wanted their ADU or something to have their own power service, we're just saying, put it next to the other one. We don't want it on the other side of the house or out on the external garage or anything like that. And it has some similar requirements for businesses. Let's keep them together in those instances.
Water meters were included in that too, weren't they, in this proposal? Or
So-
were they?
Yeah, so,
In a vault?
yeah, I'll get to a drawing, it'll be easier to show that
Okay.
in the water meters. But yeah, you're exactly right. We found a new way to do the detectable warning in a metal type solution that doesn't get, the clay and the brick ones, they get damaged too easily, we feel like. The plastic ones, same thing. And so we've been using cast iron. Cast iron kind of rusts and bleeds off. And so we found one that doesn't do that. And so we're just changing the spec to, it's a little bit lighter metal, but it doesn't rust. And so a lot of these changes are just,
Boilerplate, aren't they?
yeah, just changing what type of detectable warning is used. This is what John was talking about. We have a situation where, especially as these lots get smaller or their frontages get narrower, we're having upwards of half of the lots ending up with their water meters or pressurized irrigation meters in a driveway. And what's happening is the developer will put in not traffic rated boxes because they're cheaper, and then homeowners will build the driveway, the home builders will build the driveway, and it will be right where that box is. They'll have to spend a lot of time putting a traffic rated box and money, and it's caused so many problems that we are proposing that we just combine them into one, what's called the cone section of the manhole, which has plenty of room to get down, work on them. It can have the higher up pressurized irrigation, the lower down drinking water. It's traffic rated. The lids are not easily popped off, so it's safer. IRMA says IRMA is our insurance entity, and they say that a lot of their claims come from meter can lids coming off and people stepping down in to that hole. These you can't readily do that, and we've been using this standard for a couple of years and it works great. It is a little bit more money. I want to say about $350 more, but a lot cheaper if you're one of the 50% of the homes that you have to pull out the not traffic rated boxes and put in meter cans that are, when you learn that your driveway is going to go through it. And so in the end, this is probably a little bit more expensive for the developer, but in half the cases, it's a lot cheaper for the future person that's going to live there. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a much better, everything's better about it as far as the city is concerned. Any questions about that? I actually went with the crew, and where we had to replace a meter inside of the little boxes that aren't traffic rated, you basically have to pull the whole box out, put a new one every time you replace a meter. You don't have that
Get
problem.
into it.
It's a lot better.
It's a hassle.
So now the rest of these are just plans related to that. You can still build the other, but it says with permission of the city engineer, which I know him really well, and I don't think he plans on giving that permission much.
You know him a little bit.
So, anyway. This, took me a long time looking at this. What are we changing? But they're just renumbering. So some of these, it doesn't look like there's much changes except for they're just renumbering them in the book.
Is this the same thing every 6 months?
Yeah.
Great.
So any changes to standards or the master plans, we just want them to hit January 1st, July 1st. And I think it'll be a lot easier to track.
Okay, thank you. We'll open up for public hearing. Seeing nobody, we'll close public hearing. Do the commissioners have any questions for Chris on the construction standards? Okay, I'd entertain a motion then.
I move that we recommend that the construction standards, the changes in the construction standards be recommended to the city council. Or are we, we're recommending.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that we recommend to the city council that they be approved.
Approve the ordinance to revise the construction standards. Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Our last, item number 8 is the discussion. Do we have items to discuss tonight?
Mr. Chairman, we do not. If there's anything the commission would like to talk about, we're happy to.
I
do
move
whatever.
that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
I'll second that. Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.
Wow.